So continuing here in Amudei Hod on page Kuf Chaf Hey, and we were learning a Gemara in Masechet Beitza. The Gemara Masechet Beitza was dealing with the question of hadacha, which means grinding, and specifically on Yontif. And the Gemara establishes in the name of Beis Hillel a distinction between Tavlin and Melach. In the case of Melach, we were more machmir. And the Gemara offers two possible explanations with a nafkamina as to why we're more machmir in Melach. One explanation is that with regard to Melach, the assumption is that any cooking will require Melach as one of its ingredients, and therefore on Erev Yontif, the hadacha in preparing the salt should have been accomplished. Another explanation was that in truth, we are more mekil in Tavlin than in Melach, because if you do the hadacha of Tavlin on Erev Yontif, which would be the ideal, but there's going to be afagas tam, that some of the tam of the Tavlin will evaporate. And the Gemara establishes that nafkamina between the two would be in a case where he already knows on Erev Yontif that he needs Tavlin in his Tavshil. So if you go with the explanation that we were more machmir in Melach because we knew on Erev Yontif, then in this case where he knows on Erev Yontif that he's going to need Tavlin as part of the ingredients of the Tavshil, we would have to be machmir for Tavlin the same way we would do for Melach. The Gemara offers a second nafkamina with regard to a certain kind of spice, which is called karkom, which does not suffer from hafagas tam. And therefore, according to that shita, that the problem with Tavlin, if we require that doch and Erev Yontif, is that it will be mefik tam, well, in this case, that wouldn't apply. And we're up to number Yud, le'inyan halacha. Kosva Tosfos, Pasak Ri, Sheyesh Lesar B'chol Inyan. In all case, we should go l'chumra. That means we'll go l'chumra in a case where he knew on Erev Yontif that he would require Tavlin in the Tavshil, and we'll go l'chumra in the case where he's using karkom as a Tavlin, which could have easily have been prepared on Erev Yontif. He says the following: V'afal gav de b'shel sofrim, the entire Isur of hadacha on Yontif is only DeRabanan, because on a Doraisa level, the Torah allows anything for the sake of food on Yontif. And the principle with regard to a DeRabanan is halach achra mekil. He says, Hoil ulechol echad v'echad yesh kula v'chumra mikol tzad avdinon lechumra. So that's the language of Tosfos, that lechol echad v'echad yesh kula v'chumra mikol tzad. Because of Rabbi Kiveger, Pesachim Kuf Ches Amid Aleph, Ukazek Hosvu. So now, keep in mind, our daf in Pesachim, in terms of whether you need Heseb on all four kosos, is Kuf Ches. Rabbi Kiveger makes a comment on our sugya of Heseba and Dalit Kosos, quoting the Ran, and he compares the Ran to Tosus and Beitza. Kozek Kosu Tosus, Perk Aleph de Beitza, Kevan de L'chol Lishna, Havikula Vechumra, Kevan Shi Efshar Lahakil B'Shtein, Vade Avdinon, Shaloka Hogan, Devade Avdinon Shaloka Hogan, Machmirin B'Travayit. So we're going to analyze these words of Rabbi Akiva Eiger, and based on these words of Rabbi Akiva Eiger, we're going to figure out how he understood Tosus and Beitza. He says the following: every Lishna in explaining the difference between Melach and Tavlin has both a Chumrah and a Kula. Let's just go over the mathematics one more time. He says the following: that if he knows on Erev Yontif exactly what he's going to be cooking on Yontif, then there's a Chumrah in that he would be required to do the hadacha of Tavlin, even Tavlin, on Erev Yontif, if he knows that on Yontif he's going to need Tavlin as part of the recipe. Now, the second afkamina, we remember, was karkom. So if you hold that the reason why we permit Tavlin on Yontif is because of Hafagas Tam, that doesn't apply to karkom. So therefore we'd be machmir. This is what we have to add here. But there's one man that says that the reason why we're machmir in Melach is because every kedera needs Melach. So in that sense, we could always be mekil in Morika because it's a separate chumrah in Melach. But if we're going to say that the kula in Tavlin is because of Hafagas Tam, then it won't apply to Karkom. So anyway, just to summarize, Rabbi Akiva Eiger is saying the following, that each Lishna has both a kula and a chumrah. Now, if that be the case, then you cannot apply the principle of Safek DeRabanan LeKula, because by doing so, if you accept the kula of both of them, then you will not have the chumrah, and each one of the different opinions has a chumrah. He says the following: Atam deloma kilin b'travayu mishum she'im nidon hakol lekula im kein yavar al takonas hamishna the asur loduch melach kedarko sharei yaduch havlin kasher yadu be'erev yontiv shetzarach lo al smach hatzad shatakona haisarat b'melach mishum she'im mafik tamo began yaduch morika kasher lo Yada, even if he doesn't know Shetzarch Morika L'Kdei Raso, Al Smach Hatzad Shatakona Yisrarak B'Melach Mishum Shekol HaKdei Tzrichas Melach Nimtza Sheyavar Al Takonas HaMishnah V'hu Kedirei Aran L'Gabi Dalit Kosos Shaleka B'Din Hasebasan Safek DeRabanan LeKula Mishum Shemiyekel Vada Yavar Al Chiyuv Haseba B'Dalit Kosos. So let's understand Rabbi Akiva Eiger's analogy. He's comparing Tosfos in Beitza to the Ran in Pesachim, just to get the names straight. The Ran in Pesachim is saying that if we take the Kula in both debates, or shall we say, vis-a-vis both sets of Dalet Kosos, we end up undermining the entire mitzvah of Heseba with regard to Dalet Kosos, because he'll end up with absolutely no Heseba Dalet Kosos. So it means by applying Safek DeRabanan LeKula straight through in a systematic way, we're going to end up undermining the very takana of Heseba and Dalet Kosos. And by analogy, that's what Tosfos is saying in Beitza, that if you take both kulos of both shitos, as far as the Isra Adocha on Yontif is concerned, then you end up violating the Mishnah, because the Mishnah says that in the case of Melach, you need to be more machmir. You have to do it with a shinui. Instead of using a regular vessel, you have to use a wooden vessel. And if we accept the kulas of both shitos, then we'll end up undermining the takana of the Mishnah. Again, there's a lot of mathematics here. Let me just try for a minute to get the mathematics down. I know it's a little bit heavy, but we'll survive it. So again, we're gonna, I think, chart this out is a little bit easier for me. We're gonna have two opinions. One opinion is Kol HaKederos Tzrichos Melach. So that means that he knows on Erev Yontif that he has to prepare Melach. So he should have done it on Erev Yontif. Now we get to the second opinion, and that is that Melach ein mefig taimo. Okay. So then we gave two situations in which we could be mekil and allow hadacha of tavlin on Yontif. 1 second. No. So let's make the following calculation. If we hold, like the first opinion, that kol kederos tzrichos melach, all mixtures, all cooking needs salt. So then we have a kula in tavlin and a chumrah in melach. I mean, that's always going to be the formula. If we hold melach ein mefig tamo, once again, we have a chumrah in melach, because melach is eino mefig tamo. And now the Gemara has two nafkaminas, and the first nafkamina would be that Yodea me Erev Yontif shetzorich tavlin. So therefore, according to the first explanation, so now we're going to be machmir b'tavlin, right? Not to allow grinding, because he knew already on Erev Yontif that he needs the tavlin. But lefi tam the tavlin mefigin ta'amon. So then, yesh lahakil. We could be mekil in tavlin, even if he knows he's going to use the tavlin in his cooking, but nevertheless, we're going to be mekil to allow him not to prevent the tavlin from hafagas tam. What was the English word we used yesterday for hafagas tam? The weakening of the taste. I mean, I'm sure there's a better word for it. Okay, so that's nafkamina number one, and now we have nafkamina number two. And that's the case of karkum, which it doesn't have the problem of hafagas tam. So if we're going to say that the reason why we were machmir in melach is because eno mefik tamo, then we have to be machmir in karkom. Why? Because then it's equal to melach. Oh. But if we say that the reason why we were machmir in melach is because he knew. So wait a minute. Why is this an afkamina? Why is karkom an afkamina? Because if we're saying that kol hakederos tzrichas melach, so we could be mekil in karkom because it doesn't have the chumrah of melach. In other words, we made a clear-cut distinction according to the first approach between melach and tavlin. Whether it's hafagas tam or not is irrelevant, just that melach usually goes into the kidera and tavlin not. So we were machmir in melach, but that's unique to melach. So let's see if we would paskin LeKula in both cases, meaning we're going to be paskening LeKula if there's hafagas tam, or if it's not melach. So then the Mishnah doesn't apply. That's what he writes here. She'im nidon hakol LeKula im kain yavar al takonas haMishnah. What did I do with my pencil? Oh, excuse me for a second. Again, she'im nidon hakol LeKula im kain yavar al takonas haMishnah the asur laduch melach kedarka. Why is that? I still don't get the mathematics here. Im nodin hakol LeKula, im kain yavar al takonas haMishnah, the asur laduch melach kedarka. Why is that so? Why is he violating the takonas haMishnah? And does anybody see that? Shem nidon hakol LeKula. Do you have the text inside? Again, it's we're on page Kuf Chaf Hey, on the right column, about 12, 13, 14 lines up from the bottom. Shem nidon hakol LeKula, im kein yaver al takonas HaMishnah, the osur laduch melech kedarko. Not sure I understand why. In all cases, whether the chumrah is because he knows that he has to put melech into his tavshil, or because melech does not in any way lose its tam, in both cases, we're going to be machmir for melech. Why does he say that akol l'kuyavar al takonas HaMishnah? Well, maybe he explains it now. Sharei yaduch tavlin kasher yeda me'er v'yontif shetzarach lo. Okay, and why? So melach is what? Is eno mafig tamo, right? But tavlin is mafig tamo, so we can be mekil even though he knows on Erev Yontif that he needs tavlin. All right, so that's a kula according to the reasoning that melech eno mefig tama. V'gam yoduf morika, and that's going to be a kula based on the first reasoning that kol hakderes tzrichim melech. Okay. So what's v'nimtza sheyavar al takonas HaMishnah? Again, he repeats himself a second time around. Nimtza sheyavar al takonas HaMishnah. What does that mean, yavar al takonas HaMishnah? The Mishnah says that you're not allowed to do adacha with a regular madoch, which is called the madoch shel even, on yontif. You can't crush salt on yontif. So why are we violating that takon? We paskin LeKula in both cases. And basically, I'm not asking a kasha on Rabbi Kiveger or on the Amudei Hod. I'm asking a kasha on Tosfos. I mean, Tosfos is trying to explain why we don't say Safek DeRabanan LeKula here. But again, the Safek DeRabanan LeKula is only going to impact on Tavlin. It's not going to have any impact on Melach. There doesn't seem to be any scenario in which we could be lenient on Melach. The question is, can we be lenient on Tavlin? Maybe he means something slightly different. Maybe he means that we won't fulfill the Takonas HaMishnah to differentiate between Melach and Tavlin. Maybe that's what he means. Let's just see if that works out. If we paskin LeKula in both cases, then even if he knows on Erev Yontif that he needs the Tavlin, we could still be mekil because of hafagas tam. And even karkum, we could be mekil because it doesn't have that chumrah of melach that's different than tavlin. Yeah, but what would be in a case where he was using karko, let's say, I don't have it. Is anybody, the trouble with Zoom is that it could drive me nuts. I don't know if you're following me, you're not following me. Maybe you think I'm asking a silly question and you know the answer. I don't know. You got to have Rahmanis on me, fellas.
No, why the reference to Melech doesn't make sense.
Again, he's saying, I don't know what you mean by reference to Melech. He's saying that if we accept the kula of both opinions, then Yavar al Takonas HaMishnah, he will undermine the Takon of the Mishnah, which says that Asr Laduch Melech Kedarko, that the Hadoch of Melech has to be with a Shinu, it has to be done in a very unusual way with a Madoch Shel Eitz as opposed to a Madoch Shel Evan. Why is that so? Can you help me here with the mathematics? He's calculating that's going to be a violation of the Takonas HaMishnah regarding Melech. That's what it says over here. Yavar al Takonas HaMishnah di Asur Laduch Melech Kedarko. What does he mean by that? I mean, who's allowing you to do Hadochas Melech Kedarko? Did anybody say that was okay? That's the piece of the puzzle I'm missing. If you know the answer, please share it with me. Can we make you? Sorry, I don't have it. And again, it's a tosis in Beitza. I mean, I don't know pshat and tosis in Beitza. Oh, okay. Misery loves company. Let's read Yud Aleph. Ulechor yesh lechalek delo domi l'masha kosav aran legabi dalet kosos sheshom kosav aran inekel b'travayu meikara miakra mitzvah heseba legamra, and he won't do heseba on any of the four kosos. So that undermines the entire takon of heseba of dalet kosos. Ach legabi dichas tavlin af im yoduch tavlin sheodea me'erev yontav shetzarech lo. Right, he's going to do hadocha of tavlin even in a situation where he knows he's going to use tavlin, because we're going to rely on that opinion that tavlin is mefik tamo. V'gam yoduch morika af sheinu mefik tamo, because it was a special chumrah in melach, because kol akderos tzrichas melach lo tispatel takonas hamishna. Baruch Hashem. Okay, these are the key words that I was looking for. Les ardichas melach. Sharei melach vaday lo yidoch. We're only coming up with kulas with regard to tavlin that l'chora should have been equated to melach in these cases, either because he knew already on Erev Yontif that he was going to use those talvin, or because it's a special kind of spice that resists that process of diffusion, or whatever word you want to use. Okay, so there are those two kulas that we can accept in the cases where we would have said l'chumra, because either he knows Erev Yontif he's going to use the tavlin, or it's a tavlin that is eino mefik tamo. But as far as melach is concerned, nothing changed. We remain steadfast that melach needs this shinui. Melach sharei kol hakeder srichas melach umelach eino mafik taimo. Umayim yoduch tavlin sheyodem erev yontiv shetzarich lo b'yontiv o yoduch gam yoduch morika af shebevadai b'echad bihem ovar al takonas isu dichas melach. Oh, that's an interesting phrase. That in one of these two cases, if he's making them both, he says violating the takana of the isu dichas melach. Because again, the Isa Dichas Melach might include Tavlin. How so? It would include Tavlin if he knew about the Tavlin on Erev Yontiv. It would include Tavlin if he was talking about Karkam, which is Eino Mefik Tamo. So within that rubric, within that general formulation of Asur Laduch B'Melach, we would have to include Tavlin in one of those two cases. Interesting. So again, there's no nafkamina as far as melach is concerned. Melach always is going to be also be what we call hadocha kedarko, the regular hadocha. You're going to have to use a wooden kli. So that takana will remain untouched, unviolated. But forget about melach. Speak about the concept of melach, which could include tavlin as well, meaning the isa that was formulated in the Gzeres Chachamim regarding melach would include tavlin if that situation of tavlin is equal to melach, which means eino mefik tamo or yodea mi'erev yontiv. Now we're going to take both kulos and we're going to be mekil with a madocha shel mateches, or I should say shel even, both in the case of Yodea Me'erev Yontiv and in the case of Eino Mefik Tamo, and that certainly will violate the Takonas Melach, because again, we're not defining the Takonas Melach in a limited way, in which the Takana is only applicable to melach, but rather melach is a category. Melach is a concept which includes either, again, depending on which Mandiyama you're going according to, anything that he knows about yesterday or anything that's not mefik tama. He says, I don't understand, lo, if pas lon b'zeh mishum shekol ma'aseh she'osa b'fnei atzmo yesh lo ladun LeKula. V'gufa takana lo nekar mina olam. Okay, there are situations in which you will be oker the takana according to one mandiyama who's machmi. But as far as the takana per se is very much in place and active in the case of melach. So that's not similar to the Ran. The Ran is saying that if you apply Safek DeRabanan LeKula to both the first set of Dalet Kos and the second set, then the takon is completely null and void. Umashe kosav Rabbi Kivege shekemen shevada yasa shelo kahogen kasha yoduf tavlin shiodea shetzarch lo me'erev yontiv v'gam yoduf morika lo nizka baran svara zu shemishum kach azlinon b'takonas chachamim lechumra. In other words, although it's true that if we take the kula of both shitos and apply Safek DeRabanan LeKula in both cases, we'll end up with a situation that for sure we're going to do something shelo kahogen and violate the din according to one man the Amar. That's not what the Ran is talking about. The Ran is talking about being oker the takana legamre, meaning that the takana will be a null set and it never ever applies. So basically, at this point in the discussion, we are really stuck against the brick wall as far as understanding Rabbi Akiva Eiger's equation between Tosfos in Beitza and the Ran in Pesachim. That analogy doesn't hold water. The Ran never said or limited Safek DeRabanan LeKula if we apply it straight down the line and we're going to be violating the opinion of one of the two opinions in any event. That's okay. Let's imagine we had one single machlokas with one single nafkamina, and it's a DeRabanan. So we would certainly apply Safek DeRabanan LeKula, even though we're going to be violating the other opinion. So in each case, that's exactly what we should be doing. And therefore, we don't justify Tosfos. Meaning, when you have Tavlin of that you anticipated Erev Yontif, we're going to be Mekil because Tavlin are not similar to Melach, because Tavlin lend themselves to Hafakas Tam. And if you have the case of Karkom, we're going to be Mekil because we're going to say, well, he didn't know about it on Erev Yontif. And by the way, it just occurred to me that if he has a case of Karkom that he knew about on Erev Yontif, then for sure we'd have to be Machmir. Right? Because there's no Safek here that it's Asur. It's Vaday Asur. Mimarav Shach it's Asur. If it's Asur because it's similar to Melach because Lo Mefik Tamo, or you could say it's similar to Melach and it's also because he knew about it on Erev Yontif. So if he knew about Karkom on Erev Yontif, for sure it would be also. I mean, that's not a question. Oh, funny. I don't know if Don... Oh, hi, Don. This appears clarifying. Okay. Gami Loshan Atosus or Mashbash in his Kavnu with Divrei Rabbi Akiva Eiger, he's sort of adding oil to the fire. Shrei Kosva Atosus Tatam Dazlin Lechumra Besafik Dedichas Tavlinim Hu Hoil Ulekol Echad Vechad Yesh Kula Vechumra Mikol Tzad Avdinin Lechumra. In brackets, he writes Tevas Mikol Tzad Niros Lechora Kisfas Yeser. Okay, fine. He says we should take out from the text these two words, Mikol Tzad. I thought Mikol Tzad was dafka good, but okay, he doesn't like it. He named Loshan Atosin Neret Tam She'ein Linko Pedini Tavlinin Safek DeRabanan LeKula Mishum De'ein Kan Kula Gemura She'kol Tzad Kula yesh bo gam chumra. Okay, so let's think about that. Kol tzad yesh bo chumra. What that means is that if you're going to go with the tzad that will be mekil in afilu yoda that he needs taflina right on erev yontif, so that means that what? Right, that will be mekil if he knew about it. I'm sorry. We're going to be mekil on karkom, right? Do you follow the mathematics here? What he's saying is that each side in this machlokas is both a kula and a chumrah, correct? So let's say, for example, if you take the first side, so that we said, which means I call it their sichas melach, then that's going to be a kula as far as karkom is concerned. But at the same time, right? At the same time, it's going to be a chumrah with regard to tavlin that he knew about on erev yontif. And if, on the other hand, you take the second side about melech mefik tam and not, and then we said according to that second side, we could be mekil in the case where he knew about on erev yontif, but yet will be machmer in the case of karkom. So every single kula, according to that mind the Omer, has a chumrah. I mean, that sounds very similar to Daled Kosos, because if you take the kula that you don't need has save in the first two kosas, well, there's a chumrah that you need has save in the second two kosas. V'lo simu k'divrei Rabbi Kivega shem yekel b'travai nimtza sha'osa shelo ha'ogen. Elazeh gufa she'ein lefanenu kula gemura hi asiba shelo danim Safek DeRabanan LeKula. Right, that's what Tosus means when he says Hol Chol Echad VeEchad Yesh Bo Kula VeChumra. But it has nothing to do with Rabbi Kivega says that he's somehow violating the takana. So let's see how we can possibly put this Tosus together. So we're going to look at Yud Gimel now, which is on the bottom right of Kuf Chaf Vav. V'nireh the Tosus Azli Bazeh Lishi Tosayu. Why? The din Safek DeRabanan LeKula who din hachras hasafek hachra bis Safek. Right. Let's just this will require a little bit of a review. We have to go back a few pages here. Let me see if we can find it. Right. So Tosa says that you can count the Omer on the evening during Bein Hashmoshos, because Sfiras Omer Bizman Hazeh is DeRabanan, and therefore we can apply Safek DeRabanan LeKula as far as the bracha is concerned, and assume it's already nightfall, even though we don't know that it's nightfall. So we said that Tosfos is of the opinion that this is a hachroas hasafek, which means we're going to conclude that Bein Hashmashos is Vadei Laila, so that he can allow, and therefore Tosfos would permit a bracha. Because if it remains a Safek, then we have another principle called Safek brachas lahak. Okay, fine. The Safek DeRabanan, okay, the Safek DeRabanan, Amru Chachamim, Shan Hagas HaSafek Tia Lachriel Etzad Hakal, She'adunu Bevada. Okay, so we're going to conclude that it's Vadai Ketzad Hakal. Okay. The Kevan Shekain, Kol Tzad Kal, Sheyesh Bo Gam Tzad Chamur, Les Beidina, this Safek DeRabanan LeKula, Delo Nemar Lachria Es HaSafek LeKula, Elim Kain Havikula Gemura, She'ein Bo Tzad Chomer, Akol Sheyesh Bo Bekula Tzad Chomer, Lo Nemar Bo Es HaKlal, the Safek DeRabanan LeKula. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Just out of curiosity, again, I can't see you, Don, but I just read the first 10 lines in Yud Gimel. I'm just curious now. Did you understand those 10 lines? You did? Can you explain them to me? If you don't mind. I don't mean to put you on the spot. I mean, my wife is always worried that I put people on the spot,
I wasn't the one who said I understood.
Okay, Don, we're not going to blame you.
I shook my head no.
Jeff, can you just, in your own words, like recap what Tosfos is saying?
I understand the words, but I really can't put it together.
Okay. And Steve, can you put it together?
My Hebrew is not good enough for that.
Oh, okay. All right. So Jeff has no problem with the Hebrew. He has a problem with the concept. And Steve will have no problem with the concept, but he has a problem with the Hebrew. Anyway, let me try to explain.
So I'll say both.
Let me try to explain to you what I think he's saying over here. This is absolutely fascinating. If Safek DeRabanan LeKula is a hachra, again, in this case, you'll have to write it on the blackboard, on the whiteboard. Hachra, which equals vadai, then we're really in a bind over here. We're in a logical contradiction. Because in this case, each opinion has both a kula and a chumrah. And if you're applying the kula and it's a vadai, then by definition you have to apply the chumrah as well. We'll give an example, so we'll give it flesh and blood. Like, take for example, if we go with the let's say the shita that melech eino mefig tama. That the reason why we are machmir in melech is because melech doesn't lose its sharpness. And then we said that according to that, even if he knew about Tavlin, the need for Tavlin and Erev Yontif, we could be Mekil. And we could say, well, Tavlin will be Mefik Tama. Right? The taste of the Tavlin, if you prepare it on Erev Yontif, like I gave the example yesterday of Charain, for the Leil HaSeder for Mor, right? If you leave it already ground on Erev Yontiv, it's going to lose its sharpness. So therefore, right, according to the reasoning of Melach L'chumra, because of Eino Mefik Tamo, we could be Mekil even if we knew about the Tavlin on Erev Yontiv, because Tavlin is Mefik Tamo. But according to the Shita, we have a Chumrah in the case of Karkom. Why? Because Melech and Karkom are exactly the same as far as Eino Mefik Tamo. So do you see where Melech Eino Mefik Tamo has both a Kula and a Chumrah? It's going to be a Kula in the case of Tavlin that he knew about on Erev Yontiv, because it's still Mefik Tamo. It's going to be a Chumrah in the case of Karkom, because Karkom, like Melech, is Eino Mefik Tamo. Now, if we're going to apply Safek DeRabanan LeKula as a Vadai, which means that we're going to allow you to be lenient in the case of Tavlin that you knew about Erev Yontiv because it's Mefik Tamo, then by definition, we're going to have to be Machmir in the case of Karkom. Because now you're telling me that the Rabbanan established that anything that's Eino Mefik Tamo is prohibited. When I say prohibited, I mean you'd have to use that very shinu, that is prohibited because it's Eino Mefik Tamo. Then we have to be Machmir in Karkom. Now you're going to tell me, no, we're going to be Mekel in Karkom because there's one man, the Amru, who says that the Chumrah of Melach only applies to Melach, and it doesn't apply to Tavlin at all, straight across the board. Well, you would just Machriya the Safek, you just decided that it's definite that the reason why Melach is Asur L'Chumrah is because it's Eino Mefik Tamo, and that's why you would Mekil in the case of Tavlin, even though he knew about it Erev Yontiv, but it's still going to be Mefik Tamo. But once you accept that opinion, then it's impossible to be Mekil in the case of Karkom, because then you're involved in a logical contradiction. Because you're going to be Mekil in Karkom based on a whole different understanding and definition of why we're Machmir in Melech. It has nothing to do with, right, with Mefik Tamo. It has to do with Kol HaKederes Tzrichas Melech. So again, to summarize this whole discussion in the shortest abridged way that I can, in 2 sentences, you cannot identify Safek DeRabanan LeKula as a definite in a case where each opinion has a chumrah. Because if you're going to apply Safek DeRabanan LeKula on each opinion, then you're involved in a self-contradiction. Very exciting to me. This is brand new to me. This is like very, very profound Torah. And he quotes on the top left here of Kuf Chafav, Tosas Rabbeinu Peretz in Beitza, the Bechol Duchta the Ika Trei Lishni B'Shal Sofrim, Halach Achar Mekil, Hani Mili Ki Ika Chad Lishna de Mekil Legamre. You could go LeKula if there's one opinion that will generate repercussions that are always LeKula. Aval Hach, but here in our case of 2 definitions of Melach, is B'chol Chad V'chad Ika Tzad Kula V'Tzad Chumrah. No matter which way you understand to justify the Chumrah of Melach, you're always going to end up with both a Kula and a Chumrah. So you can't accept both opinions LeKula, because then, as we said before, you're involved in self-contradiction, because you'll be making in both chumras, which at least, right, each opinion would say you'd have to be machmir, again, depending on the case, but it doesn't matter. Umatzanu b'tosis Shesfirle didin Safek DeRabanan LeKula eno mishum to be tochas Safek shari linog LeKula mishum Safek lachrias Safek, and that was the question that we had before about making a bracha on Sfiras HaOmer during Bein Hashmashos. V'nira de b'Safek hashecha yochel levarch v'ein tzorch lahamtin ad she'vadai laila came into Safek DeRabanan. And if I remember correctly, Rav Soloveitchik had a whole different understanding of this Tosaf. What was his point? That it had something to do with the fact that we wanted to count Sfiras HaOmer at the earliest possible time so that the entire day will be counted. If you count in the middle of the day, then half the day was not counted. And the Rabbanan, when they established Sfiras HaOmer, they wanted you to be absolutely sure that the entire day would be counted, and therefore they paskin that you could make a bracha during Bein Hashmashos. Anyway, I don't want to overburden you with a different approach, but he's saying that according to Tosaf Menachos, there's a halach of Safek DeRabanan LeKula is a hachra, and that's a vada. And now he's going to quote the Rosh in Arvei Pesachim. Pirish Ri, V'nira de Safek Hashecha. Not sure why is this Rosh in Pesachim? And he's addressing the issue of Sfiras HaOmer. I'm not sure why, but we'd have to do a little more research on that. Nira de Safek Hashecha Yochel Levarech V'ein Tzorch Lahamtin Ad She'evadei Laila Kevon Dehavi Sfeika DeRabanan B'Dekasav Ri Sheyochel Levarech Ben Hashmashos Afal Pishu Safek Al Karchach Svirle Da'atam de Safek DeRabanan LeKula V'Shuv D'Machrim Es HaSafek LaHakel Dim Loken Elam Mitoch Safek Makilin Ech Yuchel Levarech Hari Safek Brachas LaHakel. This is just a summary of everything that we discussed. Near the Shariva Beitza Azul Shitase Beinon Sfiras HaOmer the Safek DeRabanan LeKula V'Mikoch Achra B'Safek Valkein Kasav L'Gabe Safek B'Deleka Tavlinin. I'm sorry, B'Dikas Tavlinin. Di Efshar Lachria Es HaSafek. Mishum she'ein kan sad shu kal legamrei v'leka din achra ela b'tzad shu kal legamrei. V'ledivrei Rivi Masechet Beitza muchach od Desfile derak mishum achra maikilim v'safek DeRabanan LeKula. Aval im ein achra ein heter lasos ma'isa LeKula mitoch safek. Okay, then Rabbi say this is where we're going to stop here. I'm just making myself a note on the top of page Kuf Kaf Zayin. Okay, and we have the entire Simon, right, Steve? Okay, so Blinetta will pick up.
I have to send out the second half.
Oh, up to what page did you get?
I think Kufkov Tet, I think I got.
Oh, okay, good.
So I'm gonna do the second half because it got very large and it won't email if it's because it was a lot of pages. So I'm gonna do the second half today and send that out.
Great. All right, so we'll learn a little bit of the insights of Rav Soloveitchik to Parshas B'Shalach in about 10 minutes. Is that okay? All right. Thank you so much.